Welcome everyone to another episode of Archetype Review. In this episode, we are going to be looking at the level archetype, otherwise known as the LV archetype. So the level archetype is actually quite noteworthy simply because of the fact that despite it all being one archetype in general that covers many different series of monsters, these different monsters actually each have different sub-series or sub-archetypes within them. In other words, the level archetype is actually really massive and encompasses a wide range of both monsters as well as spell and trap cards. To this date, level monsters actually still have incredibly unique effects, even if they're actually deemed a little bit slow nowadays, simply because of the fact that during an end phase or standby phase, depending on the specific monster, the monster itself can actually upgrade itself to a higher level monster from the deck, thus powering up and then having its slightly stronger effect slowly but surely. The effect is unique, but nowadays it's just deemed too slow, simply because of the fact that it will take multiple turns for a low level monster to go into a high level monster. Overall, some of these level monsters are pretty much useless, while others, although not amazing, are actually pretty useful in some ways. So let's begin by covering the very first monster, which is composed of 3 different levels: Allure Queen level 3, Allure Queen level 5, and Allure Queen level 7. So Allure Queen level 3 is a spellcaster monster with 500 attack and defense, and the effect says once per turn, during your main phase you can select one level 3 or lower monster on your opponent's side of the field and equip it to this card. Only one card at a time can be equipped due to this effect. If this card would be destroyed by battle, the equipped monster is destroyed instead. During your standby phase, by sending this card to the graveyard while it's equipped due to its effect, special summon one Allure Queen level 5 from your hand or deck. Allure Queen level 5 has 1000 attack and defense for it being a tribute monster, and once per turn, you can basically select one level 5 or lower monster on your opponent's side of the field with essentially the same exact effect. And lastly, Allure Queen level 7 has 1500 attack and defense for it being a 2 tribute monster, and once again has the same exact effect except it can target any one monster as opposed to a specific level or lower. Overall, the Allure Queen monsters are actually pretty damn horrible even back when they came out, because of the simple reason that they have incredibly low attacks, especially 5 and 7 for being tribute monsters. It really isn't offset by the fact that the monster that they get has to be fairly specific in terms of a level, and the worst part is that it doesn't even offer an attack bonus. You see, there's actually cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That have low basic original attacks, simply because of the fact that they're offset by effects that essentially let them take monsters and combine their attacks, kind of like the Cyber Dogs, for example. See, those cards actually have pretty interesting effects that, even though they're not great, they at least get to add attack because they have a low original attack themselves. Allure Queen does not actually take the attack of the monster that's equipped to, which is something that they definitely missed there. On top of that, they only have protection from specifically battling, which is also not a good thing. And then lastly, for 3 and 5 specifically, they have to actually survive the opponent's turn so that on your standby phase you're able to then upgrade. More often than not, you're not going to be able to send this card to upgrade, simply because even if you do take an opponent's monster, remember that if the opponent attacks into Allure Queen, you lose the equipped monster. Allure Queen gets saved, but you lose the monster, thus in your standby phase you can't activate the effect because you need to have the monster equipped. And because of the fact that these monsters have low original attack with no upgrades when equipping other monsters, means that pretty much any monster can battle over them. Really shitty, but I do want to cover one other support card known as Queen's Bodyguard. This one is a level 4 monster with 1700 attack and 1200 defense, and the effect says that Allure Queen monsters on your side of the field cannot be selected as an attack target. While the protection I suppose was okay back in the day, it's obviously not useful anymore, and it pretty much never was, as I was being a little bit generous. But overall, it's really bad how they actually made the protection by battling essentially the one type of protection that Allure Queen actually has when equipped with the monster, but there's no protection at all for targeting or destruction or anything else, which makes the card really specific for protecting, and that's bad. Moving on to the next monster, we actually have 4 different levels of this monster, but we'll start with the first 3: Armed Dragon level 3, Armed Dragon level 5, and Armed Dragon level 7. So level 3 has 1200 attack and 900 defense, and the effect says that during your standby phase, you can send this card to the graveyard, special summon one Armed Dragon level 5 from your hand or deck. Armed Dragon level 5, however, has 2400 attack and 1700 defense, and the effect says that you can send one monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target one face-up monster your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to the sent monster's attack. Destroy that target. During the end phase, if this card destroys a monster by battle this turn, you can send this card to the graveyard, special summon one Armed Dragon level 7 from your hand or deck. And Armed Dragon level 7 has 2800 attack and 1000 defense, and its effect says that it cannot be normal summon or set, must be special summoned by Armed Dragon level 5. You can send one monster from your hand to the graveyard to destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to the sent monster's attack. Believe it or not, the Armed Dragons actually were some of the better level monsters early on. You see, there was a very famous combo with Masked Dragon back in the day, where if you simply set or summon a Masked Dragon and let your opponent ram into it, you could just basically special summon an Armed Dragon level 3, and then on your standby phase, you get an automatic Armed Dragon level 5. And if your opponent had multiple monsters to destroy Masked Dragon, well guess what? You can just keep bringing the Masked Dragons onto the field until it's the last one, and then you bring Armed Dragon level 3. This means that on your turn you have an Armed Dragon level 5 with a pretty good attack and actually a pretty good effect back in 2003 standards. The big thing about this effect though is that it's also not once per turn. So as long as you have cards in your hand that have decent attack stats, you can essentially wipe out a bunch of your opponent's monsters. And then lastly, getting this card into level 7 was honestly not the hardest thing in the world, as it only needs to destroy one monster by battle, and then you upgrade on the end phase. Armed Dragon level 7 however was the card that was not nearly played as much as 5 or 3, simply because despite the attack being 400 points stronger as well as having an upgraded effect, it actually wasn't that much better compared to 5, and it really wasn't worth the difficulty of bringing this card out, which is why it was rarely seen. Another really weird thing about this card is the fact that it actually has lower defense than Armed Dragon level 5, which I always thought was kind of odd, that its defense actually got downgraded, which was pretty weird. And now moving on to an even stronger one, Armed Dragon level 10. So this one actually has 3000 attack and 2000 defense. And the effect says that it cannot be normal summon or set, cannot be special summoned except by tributing one Armed Dragon level 7. You can send one card from your hand to the graveyard to destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. The summoning condition is actually very different than the previous 3 Armed Dragons, simply because this card was actually released later than the first 3. While it's nice that it's a special summon, it's actually very difficult to bring it out because it's already tough enough to get a level 7 onto the field. Now you actually have to keep it on the field and then tribute it to special summon it. Yeah, it's a little too specific. The effect is also not that great of an upgrade compared to 7. You simply discard a card, and then you destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. It would have been better if it just destroyed all monsters, meaning not just face-up, but unfortunately it's not that much of an upgrade compared to level 7. There is actually one more card related to Armed Dragons for now, and that's actually Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. I'm not going to read this. If you actually want to know more about this, look at the A to Z Archetype review video that I made, because that one actually covers that a lot more, so I'm skipping this. Moving on to the next series of monsters, we have Dark Lucius level 4, Dark Lucius level 6, and Dark Lucius level 8. These are a series of Earth Fiend monsters with level 4 having 1000 attack and 300 defense. The effect says the effects of your opponent's monsters that this card destroys by battle are negated. During your standby phase, after this card destroys the monster by battle, by sending this card to the graveyard, special summon one Dark Lucius level 6 from your hand or deck. Level 6 has 1700 attack and 600 defense, and the effect says, if this card was special summoned by the effect of Dark Lucius level 4, the effects of your opponent's monsters that this card destroys by battle are negated. During your next standby phase, after this card has negated your opponent's monster effect, by sending this card to the graveyard, special summon one Dark Lucius level 8 from your hand or deck. And lastly, level 8 has 2800 attack and 900 defense, and the effect says that if it was special summoned by the effect of Dark Lucius level 6, your opponent's monsters that this card destroys by battle are banished and their effects are negated. See, Dark Lucius actually would have a pretty good effect if it just had that without requiring the special summoning from Dark Lucius level 6. However, obviously that's not possible because these are level monsters, and obviously there needs to be incentive for you to actually level them up. Level 4 and 6, however, I really can't say the same about their effects. They're just very underpowered. Level 4 only has 1000 attack and really only negates monsters, effects that are destroyed by battle by this card. However, that attack is too mediocre for it to actually matter. On top of that, it's also really hard to get into level 6 because you do actually have to destroy a monster by battle to upgrade next turn, meaning your card is probably also going to get destroyed in your opponent's turn. Level 6 actually has really underwhelming stats for a level 6, and it's really just mediocre in general. On top of that, in order to upgrade to level 8, it can't just destroy a monster by battle, it actually has to negate the opponent's monster effect, and then on your next standby phase, you can upgrade. These are just way too slow and really bad. The next series of monsters is composed of Dark Mimic level 1, and Dark Mimic level 3. Level 1 has 100 attack and 1000 defense, and the effect says flip, draw 1 card. During your standby phase, you can send this face-up card to the graveyard, special summon 1 Dark Mimic level 3 from your hand or deck. Honestly, it wasn't a horrible card back in the day, even if you had no intention of running level 3, simply because it's a flip, draw 1 card, essentially making it kind of like a Skelangel, except it's Dark Fiend in case you wanted to run Dark Fiend support as opposed to Light Fairy. So overall, not horrible. Level 3 on the other hand, has 1000 attack and defense, and it says if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, draw 1 card. But if this card was special summoned by the effect of Dark Mimic level 1, draw 2 cards instead. While the potential of the effect is actually pretty powerful for drawing 2, it's really too much work to get into this. On top of that, you will only trigger the draw effects if it's actually destroyed by battle. The really weird thing about this that people don't really think about is the fact that if you want to draw 2, you have to special summon it from Mimic level 1, which means that this card would be face up on the field, meaning your opponent would have to be an idiot to basically ram into it with an attack, because they would know the card already and the potential of the effect. That just makes the card really inherently bad because your opponent pretty much has to be a complete idiot to actually fall for this. Moving on to the next series of monsters, perhaps the most iconic level monsters, Horace the Black Flame Dragon level 4, Horace the Black Flame Dragon level 6, and Horace the Black Flame Dragon level 8. So with level 4, it has 1600 attack and 1000 defense, and the effect says that control of this face-up card cannot switch. During the end phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle this turn, you can send this face-up card to the graveyard, special summon 1 Horace the Black Flame Dragon level 6 from your hand or deck. Level 6 has 2300 attack, and it says this card is unaffected by spell effects. During the end phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle this turn, you can send its face-up card to the graveyard, special summon 1 Horace the Black Flame Dragon level 8 from your hand or deck. And level 8 has 3000 attack and 1800 defense, and the effect says cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by Horace the Black Flame Dragon level 6, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. During either player's turn, when a spell card is activated, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. You must control this face-up card to activate and to resolve its effect. Horace the Black Flame Dragon was a very iconic card and really necessary in cards that essentially lock down your opponent. A lot of the time the deck was actually called literally Horace Lockdown. In combination with Jinzo to basically block trap cards, that would be a perfect lockdown and would essentially make you win the game back in the day, back when effect monsters effects were actually pretty rare. Interestingly enough, it's not as difficult to actually trigger these special summoning effects with Horace because they do have naturally higher stats than other monsters like Dark Lucius. Level 4's attack is by no means awful, but what's also kind of neat is that you don't actually have to run level 4 in a Horace deck, because level 6 can be tribute summoned or special summoned. But overall, yeah, pretty good, at least back in the day. Nowadays it's a little too slow, but it was pretty good back then. There is one more support card with Horace known as Horace's Servant. This one is a Fire Beast Warrior with 100 attack and defense, and the effect says your opponent cannot target face-up Horace the Black Flame Dragon monsters with spell, traps, or card effects. Pretty useful for advancing that lockdown even further, but of course the issue is that this card pretty much has no stats, 1 attack, and it's wiped out. The next series of monsters is Mystic Swordsman level 2, Mystic Swordsman level 4, and Mystic Swordsman level 6. Level 2 has 900 attack and 0 defense, and the effect says at the start of the damage step, if this card attacked a face-down defense position monster, destroy that monster. During the end phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle this turn, you can send this face-up card to the graveyard, special summon 1 Mystic Swordsman level 4 from your hand or deck. Level 4 has 1900 attack and 1600 defense, and it says it cannot be normal summoned but can be normal set. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacked a face and defense position monster, destroy that monster. During the end phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle this turn, you can send this face-up card to the graveyard, special summon 1 Mystic Swordsman level 6 from your hand or deck. And level 6 says cannot be normal summon but can be normal set, and at the start of the damage step, if this card attacked a face-down defense position monster, destroy that monster, and if you do, you can place it on top of your opponent's deck instead of sending it to the graveyard. Level 2 actually did see some play early on when it was first released, simply because it has a very similar effect to Sasuke Samurai, but this card actually has slightly better attack than Sasuke Samurai, which is why it did see some play. However, everything beyond that, meaning level 4 and 6, I can't necessarily say the same thing about them. While their effects were pretty useful back in the day, it took a little bit too much to actually go into these different levels, which is why people didn't really run them. In the modern days of Yu-Gi-Oh, these effects are pretty much nearly useless, simply because of the fact that, well, people don't really normal set anymore. The next series of monsters is composed of 2, Silent Magician level 4 and Silent Magician level 8. Level 4 has 1000 attack and defense, and it says each time your opponent draws a card, place one spell counter on this card. This card gains 500 attack for each spell counter on it. During the standby phase of your next turn, after the 5th spell counter is placed on this card, you can send this face-up card with 5 spell counters on it to the graveyard. Special summon one Silent Magician level 8 from your hand or deck. Level 8 has 3500 attack and 1000 defense, and the effect says that it cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by Silent Magician level 4, and cannot be special summoned by other ways, unaffected by your opponent's spell effects. So I'll just start by saying that you are never ever going to trigger level 4's effect by simply waiting 5 of your opponent's turns. That is incredibly slow, and this card will be wiped out way too easily. Really, the only way you can get this thing to 5 spell counters if you basically run it in a spell counter deck, like Endymion decks, because in those decks, it is very possible to get this card to 5 fairly easily. Despite that though, the issue is that you can't send it right away to the graveyard to special summon the level 8, you have to wait until your next standby phase to do so, which really hinders the card. And for level 8, well, while level 8 does have a respectable 3500 attack, the main issue is the fact that it says unaffected by your opponent's spell effects. Essentially, this card takes a lot more work to bring up than Horace the Black Flame Dragon level 8, but its effect is actually much worse than Horace. Horace actually prevents all opponent's spell cards from being activated. Magician level 8 just says it itself is unaffected. It's a very underpowered effect, and honestly that's why this card also pretty much sucks. The next series of monsters is composed of 3 cards: Silent Swordsman level 3, Silent Swordsman level 5, and Silent Swordsman level 7. Level 3 has 1000 attack and defense, and the effect says negate your opponent's spell effects that target this card. During your standby phase, you can send this face-up card to the graveyard, special summon one Silent Swordsman level 5 from your hand or deck. You cannot activate this effect the turn this card is summoned or flipped face-up. Level 5 says unaffected by your opponent's spell effects, and during your next standby phase, after this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, you can send this face-up card to the graveyard, special summon one Silent Swordsman level 7 from your hand or deck. And lastly, level 7 says cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by Silent Swordsman level 5, and cannot be special summoned by other ways, negate all spell effects on the field. By this point you can kind of tell that a lot of these level monsters actually have anti-spell effects, which is kind of strange that it's that specific, when they probably could have branched out and done different things for different levels, but okay. Anyway, for this series, going into level 5 is actually not difficult. It's actually just like Armed Dragon, because the card only actually needs to be sent on the standby phase with no previous criteria, meaning that you can actually float into this by a card just like how Masked Dragon did it to Armed Dragon level 3, and then immediately on your standby phase, you get to upgrade. Going into level 7, however, is a lot more difficult because this card needs to inflict battle damage by a direct attack specifically. But by that point, is it really worth going into level 7? A 2800 attack that says negate all spell effects on the field? Well, once again, it's easier to go into Horace level 8, and that thing also has a spell lockdown, so in most cases, you kind of want to run that one instead. Now we're going to go into 3 different support cards that actually have to do with Silent Magician and Silent Swordsman. The 3 cards are Silent Magician, Silent Swordsman, and Silent Paladin. We'll start with Silent Magician. This one is a level 4 spellcaster with 1000 attack and defense. The effect says cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand by tributing one spellcaster type monster, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card gains 500 attack for each card in your hand. Once per turn during either player's turn, when a spell card is activated, you can negate the activation. If this card is destroyed by battle, or if this card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon one Silent Magician monster from your hand or deck except Silent Magician, ignoring its summoning conditions. Silent Swordsman also has 1000 attack and defense, but it is a warrior. It's actually a pretty similar effect to Silent Magician, with really the only difference being the 500 attack bonus. This one actually says once per turn during your standby phase that it actually gains 500 attack, as opposed to 500 attack for every card in your hand. Also, obviously you have to attribute a warrior type to special summon it, as opposed to a spellcaster type. And lastly, the card can actually float into a Silent Swordsman monster as opposed to a Silent Magician monster, also ignoring its summoning conditions. And the third one is Silent Paladin. This one is actually a fairy with 500 attack and 1500 defense. The effect says when this card is normal summoned, you can add one Silent Swordsman level 3 or Silent Magician level 4 from your deck to your hand. During either player's turn, when a spell card is activated that targets exactly one monster you control and no other cards, you can negate the activation. This effect can only be used once while this card is face up on the field. If this card is destroyed by battle, or if this card in its owner's hand is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can target one light level monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Overall, the card is actually pretty good if you're using specifically Silent Magician or Silent Swordsman, because on the summon it's a search. That's always a fantastic effect for any card. And it also does have a once per use negation while it's on the field, which is, hey, not horrible, right? Its floating effect is also specifically on battle or card effect destruction, which does limit it a little bit, but at least it's not just specifically battle. So overall, yeah, I suppose it's okay if you actually want to run Silent Magicians or Silent Swordsman. The next series of monsters is composed of 4 of them, but let's start with the first 3. Ultimate Insect level 1, Ultimate Insect level 3, and Ultimate Insect level 5. So level 1 has 0 attack and defense. Well, that's amazing, right? The effect says, while this card is on the field, it is unaffected by the effects of spell cards. During your standby phase, by sending this face-up card to the graveyard, special summon 1 Ultimate Insect level 3 from your hand or deck. You cannot activate this effect during the turn it's normal summon, special summon, or flip face-up. Once again, another level monster that's basically anti-spells, although its better versions are actually not anti-spells, strangely enough. But once again, going into a higher level monster with this effect is not the hardest thing in the world, kind of like Armed Dragon, because you don't need to have fulfilled criteria before that. Simply on your standby phase, you can use it. So if you use a card like, oh, I don't know, maybe Howling Insect or Flying Kamikari 1, both of those cards can actually search for this and float into it upon destruction. Level 3, however, has 1400 attack and 900 defense, and the effect says if this card was special summoned by the effect of Ultimate Insect level 1, while it remains on the field, all of your opponent's monsters lose 300 attack. During your standby phase, by sending this face-up card to the graveyard, basically special summoning into a level 5. As a fun fact, you don't need to run level 1, and in fact, it's kind of recommended you don't, because it's really just going to break you even more if you do that, as this card actually does have an attack, and the one thing that you're losing is the effect of making your opponent's monsters lose 300 attack, which is honestly not the end of the world because it's a very lackluster effect anyway. And level 5 has 2300 attack and 900 defense. The effect says that if this card was special summoned by the effect of Ultimate Insect level 3, while it remains on the field, all of your opponent's monsters lose 500 attack. And during your standby phase, by sending it to the graveyard, special summon 1 Ultimate Insect level 7. This one becomes a little bit tougher to get into a level 7 because it can only be on the standby phase and not the end phase after it destroys something, kind of like what Armed Dragons do. The effect is actually a little bit better now because it does say 500, and that's kind of the starting point of something being a little bit more formidable in terms of stats loss. But the effect is by no means useful or really good at all. And then the final one is Ultimate Insect level 7. This one has 2600 attack and 1200 defense, and the effect says that if it was special summoned by the effect of Ultimate Insect level 5, while it remains on the field, all your opponent's monsters lose 700 attack and defense. So it makes your opponent lose 200 more attack for each monster, plus also defense this time, which, I mean, I guess it's nice to just throw it in there, but it's not really game changing by any means. While the effect may seem pretty good on paper, it's actually not necessarily worth the amount of time and effort it takes to go into this, which is definitely a problem. Level 3 and 5 are definitely the 2 best of the 4, simply because of the fact that they're the easiest to utilize in insect decks, at least back in the day. Not that you would ever run this in the modern insect deck, because you won't, but I'm just saying. And the next series of monsters has 2 primary level monsters, Winged Kuriboh level 9 and Winged Kuriboh level 10. So Winged Kuriboh level 9 says question mark attack and defense, and it's a fairy, and it says during either player's turn as Chainlink 3 or higher, you can special summon this card from your hand. Spell cards that have been activated are banished instead of being sent to the graveyard. The attack and defense of this card are each equal to the number of spell cards in your opponent's graveyard times 500. You can only control one face of Winged Kuriboh level 9. There's something really weird about this card because the effects actually work against each other for whatever reason, and it's really kind of convoluted. The fact that it gains more strength for each spell card in your opponent's graveyard, but while it's on the field actually sends all spell cards to the banished zone instead of the graveyard, really defeats the purpose. But overall, this card actually has nothing to do with the level archetype. Honestly, I don't know why they even put it as level 9 because it really is so just thrown in there, and it's really just really odd. Level 10 on the other hand is also a fairy but has 300 attack and 200 defense, the standard stat line of Kuriboh monsters. It says cannot be normal summon or set, must be special summon with transcendent wings. During your opponent's battle phase quick effect, you contribute this face-up card, destroy as many attack position monsters your opponent controls as possible, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the combined original attack of those destroyed monsters. The effect is fantastic if you can get it off. The difficult part is getting it off. So we have Wing Kuriboh and Transcendent Wings. Wing Kuriboh is a basic level 1 fairy monster with 300 attack and 200 defense, and it says that if this card on the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard for the rest of this turn, you take no battle damage. It was decent protection back in the day, but nowadays it's pretty much garbage. Transcendent Wings, on the other hand, is a quick play spell card that says send 1 Wing Kuriboh you control and 2 cards from your hand to the graveyard, special summon 1 Wing Kuriboh level 10 from your hand or deck. Essentially what you have to do is basically summon a Wing Kuriboh and then set this card, and if your opponent goes into the battle phase and attacks, activate the card, making sure that you have at least 2 cards in your hand, and then you upgrade, tribute it by its quick effect, blow up all your monsters, and do a lot of damage. That's easier said than done, because there's a lot of requirements that go into this, and that's why ultimately Wing Kuriboh and Wing Kuriboh level 10 are really not played. But as far as their relation to the rest of the archetype, as you can clearly see, these were just kind of thrown in there, but I have to mention them because of the fact that they are technically level monsters and level monster support, so that's why I did that. So that actually covers the main level monsters, but there are still many support and related cards, so let's go ahead and get into them. The very first one is the Graveyard in the 4th Dimension. This one says add 2 level monsters from your graveyard to your deck and shuffle it. I see the purpose behind it because obviously higher level monsters want to special summon themselves from the deck to upgrade, but it's just not really worth it. It's too slow and you're going -1 to just simply do that to go into future floating and upgrading. Yeah, it's just too underpowered. I'll talk about the next 3 at the same time: Level Up, Level Down, and Level Modulation. Level Up is a normal spell card that says send 1 face-up level monster you control to the graveyard, special summon 1 monster from your hand or deck that is listed in the sent monster's text, ignoring its summoning conditions. If you're running a level deck, this is actually a fantastic addition to the archetype. As you may have noticed, a lot of the higher level monsters are actually semi-omni or omni monsters, but the really interesting thing that you may already know is that ignoring its summoning conditions does literally ignore the summoning conditions if you're summoning from the deck. If you're summoning from the graveyard though, that's actually a different set of rules that kinda is some weird rulings that sometimes it doesn't make any sense, but at least this one is from the deck, so yes, you can go from a Horace level 6 to a Horace level 8 right away. Level Down, on the other hand, is a quick play spell card that says select 1 face-up level monster on the field to activate this card. Return the selected card to its owner's deck and special summon 1 monster from the owner's graveyard to their side of the field with the same name but lower level, ignoring the summoning conditions. Now you may think that this card is absolute trash. However, not quite, although yes, in most cases it's pretty bad. The one saving grace is that it's actually a quick play spell card, which means you can set this card, and essentially if your opponent would use a card to like target your monster and try to destroy it, you can simply do Level Down to downgrade the monster instead, thus making your opponent's card be used up and going to the graveyard, and then you do have a monster on the field still. So it can save your monster, and then later in your standby phase or the end phase of this turn or whatever the hell you want to do, you can basically just upgrade again, because the card does actually send the card back into the owner's deck and not the graveyard. So it's useful in that, essentially only for protecting yourself, but aside from that, I can see why people say it's pretty lackluster. And the third one is Level Modulation, another normal spell card that says your opponent draws 2 cards, special summon 1 level monster from your graveyard, ignoring the summoning conditions. The monster that was special summoned by this effect cannot attack nor activate or apply its effect this turn. First of all, it's absolute trash. It's horrible because it lets your opponent draw 2 cards, you get to special summon a level monster from your graveyard, ignoring the summoning conditions, but here's the problem with it. This is where the whole omni and semi-omni rulings take into effect. If you somehow send a Horace to Blackflame Dragon level 8 straight from the deck into the graveyard, you actually cannot special summon it from the graveyard onto the field because it needs to have been properly special summoned first. So the fact that some cards will not be able to be used with this card, in addition to that monster not being able to attack or activate its effects this turn, and your opponent drawing 2 cards, it's actually a really horrible card. The card can commonly be found on the list of worst normal spell cards ever to be released, so if you're running a level deck, please don't ever run this card. Level Up? Hell yeah. Level Down? That's understandable. Level Modulation? If you want to lose, sure, run it. The next 2 cards I just have to mention because they are technically part of the level archetype, but they have absolutely nothing to do with the archetype. Feast of the Wild level 5 and Magnet Circle level 2. The first one basically says that you can special summon up to 2 level 5 warrior type monsters from your hand and or graveyard, but their effects are negated, and also they cannot attack for the rest of this turn. Whereas Magnet Circle says you can special summon 1 level 2 or lower machine type monster from your hand. Again, they are part of the level archetype because they do actually have LV in capital, so that's why I had to mention them, but they have really no relation to the rest of the archetype. The next two monsters are dark counterparts to two of the better monsters in the level archetype, and they are Dark Armed Dragon and Dark Horse. I'm not going to get too specific with these basically because they don't really work in conjunction with the rest of the level archetype, but one of them is actually a very good card, Dark Armed Dragon. The second one, Dark Horse, is a little bit less useful, but by no means is it a horrible card because it's really not. But regardless, I'm just giving them a shout out right now and an honorable mention because technically speaking there is some relation to Armed Dragon and Horace, but again, not related to the level archetype. Staying on the topic of Armed Dragon and Horace, there's actually two more, Metaphys Armed Dragon and Metaphys Horace. Metaphys Armed Dragon is a light worm vanilla monster with 2800 attack and 1000 defense, and it says, usually visible despite its phantom existence. Wow. And Metaphys Horace is actually a synchro monster with 2300 attack and 1600 defense. As you can see, it's actually Horace level 6 and not Horace level 8 because its stat line is actually shared with level 6. Once again, shout out to both of these because technically speaking, they are related to these monsters in this level archetype, even though they're not necessarily level monsters themselves. So that actually concludes the entirety of the archetype. As I was saying, it's a pretty massive archetype just because it has so many different monsters. But just to kind of give you a quick overview of all the different cards. Alurqueen monsters are garbage. Armed Dragons were actually pretty good and viable. The Dark Lucius monsters are also pretty garbage. Dark Mimic monsters are also pretty bad because you can never really get the effect off to the max potential of it, which is kind of unfortunate. Horace is one of the better ones for sure. Mystic Swordsman had some play with the first one, but beyond that, not really play that much. Silent Magician is way too slow unless you wanted to run it in specifically a spell counter deck and not a level deck. Silent Swordsman is also way too underpowered. Ultimate Insect, specifically 3 and 5, had a little bit of use in early insect decks, but nowadays it's absolute trash. And Wing Kuriboh has absolutely no relation to the rest of the archetype, so I don't know why they were even made levels in the first place. But that's basically it. Usually I end it by just giving some general support cards, but the problem is because these are so different, it's really difficult to know what specific cards you want to utilize. I mentioned some tips beforehand to other specific series of cards, such as Battle Floaters, that can essentially make it a little bit easier to get into your level upgraded monsters. But beyond that, you really just kind of have to know what level monsters you want to use and then essentially use cards that support either that attribute or that type. And then you basically go from there. So that's about it for this episode. Like before, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you've not done so already. And as always, I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye everyone, have a great and of course, a fantastic day.